Yeah, so I just finished a paper. I wrote a paper on reality. Pretty much, the premise is that biology's patterns kind of define everything. The universe was kind of created through these patterns that are biological. And the title of my paper is called Biological Framework for a Mathematical Universe. So biology defines this framework for this mathematically patterned universe. And so to kind of give you a little bit more context, very similar to how the wave pattern can be seen in light,
Okay.
or the wave pattern can be seen in water or sound across those different mediums.
Yeah.
Biology's pattern can be seen in all mediums. It's just a functional pattern, right? Also very similar to how Fibonacci's pattern, right?
Okay,
Can be seen
yep.
across different mediums,
Yep.
right? Spirals of galaxies, hurricane, tornadoes in your DNA, in leaves. The same way that the pattern can be seen across those different mediums, the same way that biology's patterns exist all around us. And I remember you overhearing me talking about this red blood cell.
Yeah,
Right?
I heard a little bit, but I didn't hear the whole thing.
So I was saying that these patterns exist in everything, right? So, but unfortunately, you have to have a knowledge of like biology to kind of see them.
I
right?
don't.
Right. So that's why, I connect it with religion, where they talk about you have to, by understanding within yourself, you can understand externally. But so this cup has a biological pattern. It's a functional pattern that functions very similar to a red blood cell.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with a red blood cell, what a red blood cell does is it goes from one part of your body, gathers contents, and then distributes it to another location, right? This cup has that pattern in it. Now you're looking at it, you probably say it's just a cup, and it is subjectively, but this objective truth to it, the inherent truth to it, is this biological pattern that is this, there's a red blood cell. And what I mean by that is that like it goes and grabs contents from a location, and it comes and delivers it to itself, right?
Okay.
Now, if we were in a coffee shop and we sat down, right, and we strapped drones to these cups and start like having them fly around and deliver the coffee to us, and then after we were done, it would go back and grab us another cup, right? You could start seeing, if you looked around the coffee shop, you could start seeing this like circulatory system, right, happening, and with these cups being the red blood cells.
Because they would be, we'd take the coffee, it'd be empty or whatever, then you would go back. It
would go back, but if we strap the drone to it, right, you could start seeing this circulatory system a little bit more easily.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But even us just carrying it and doing this, right, that pattern exists. It's not as efficient as biology, because biology has billions of years to master that process, right? We're just we're just creating this as a tool, but the pattern still exists. Right, even this camera right here mimics the pattern of an eye, right? And this of an ear, or these chairs and tables function very similar to cytosol. So what cytosol does in a cell is it holds particular organelles in place, right? Now it's all fluid, right? But these here, it holds us in place. It holds things in a particular location. Now it's not a fluid.
Yeah.
But it serves the same exact purpose.
So the premise is everything kind of replicates something in the body?
Yes.
Everything in
biology.
Okay.
Even the whole field of biomimicry, right? There's an engineering field of biomimicry where they use patterns in biology and biological systems or biological processes to innovate and make more efficient human innovation. So they'll use like a kingfisher bird's beak for aerodynamics to help with high-speed trains through a tunnel, because they were encountering a sonic boom that would happen every time a train would enter a tunnel. So then they look towards the kingfisher bird, because what it does, it goes through water to spear fish.
Yeah.
And they use that design to mimic
piercing the air instead of the water.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
so everything is kind of based off nature. Like
exactly.
Nature has it figured out perfectly.
Yes. Absolutely. And then the universe is created on those same principles, but very rudimentary, and then it evolved in complexity with the creation of Earth, and like living organisms are the result of this biologically patterned universe.
Interesting. That makes sense, because like I guess things have evolved and over time, and like just like kind of engineers, their inventions evolved to get better, but nature's been doing that way longer than engineers have been engineering for.
Right. And it's like we're just born with our minds right? And then whatever has our society has documented, right? That's all we have. But we don't, I think if we take a step back and we look at ourselves from outside, we can start seeing the patterns of biology even in everything that we build, right? Even like the streets, how they function like veins, right? Circulatory system, right? Even like even the structure of our society, right? A cell, right? Like a human being. You have a bunch of cells together that do the same job, is called tissue. We have a bunch of people who do the same thing, it's called an organization, a business.
Yeah.
Now you have a bunch of tissue together, right? Of the same, doing the same jobs, called an organ.
Okay.
You have a bunch of people, a bunch of businesses who do the same thing. It's called an industry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you have also too the blood that flows throughout the body, right? Flows out the organism to provide all the fundamental needs, the wealth for the cells to do their job, and where we have money that flows throughout the economy to provide wealth. It's supposed to provide
Same
wealth,
thing.
right? To allow them to be able to do their job. But like when you start restricting the blood around the body, well, what's going to happen to the cells, right? You start having like disorder and dysfunction, right? These symptoms, and those same symptoms that you would have in your body are the same economic symptoms that would happen in society.
So what is the question here? What is reality? Is that your answer? Like it's everything. What is your answer to that?
Yeah, I just be honest. I just wrote what is reality is these biological patterns.
Yeah. Okay.
I kind of put that there to kind of encourage people just to come up and say, okay, what is reality? Let's go talk about it.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what else to.
Yeah. So what's your background? Where'd you learn all this?
Yeah, so I was writing a paper on economics, dealing with how to sustain society, like how would I structure society to function efficiently. And I figured that out through taking so I came up with a process called a perfect public offering. Actually, let me just go. So in the process of trying to sustain society, try to figure out how to sustain it, I saw this biological pattern that existed. And then I started seeing that pattern in everything. And then that made me realize that this paper was a bigger deal, would essentially be the advertising campaign for my economics paper, which is titled A Perfect Public Offering.
Okay.
Are you
like
economics?
an IPO?
Yeah, it's similar to that, but instead of selling your company through a public offering, which is only individuals within the public, so it's not truly public offering, it's just individuals within a public.
Yeah.
You can sell your shares to a nonprofit organization, and since the nonprofit organization is owned by the entire public, you can legally structure these businesses to operate in the best interest of the entire public. Now, I make the argument in the paper that nonprofit universities are well positioned, or nonprofit organizations that are well positioned to carry out this process because they have infrastructures that can subsidize the cost of the business. So imagine if like Temple University owned and operated Pico, right? Or owned and operated the water company, or Comcast, where they overlapped the education infrastructures with the work infrastructure, so they produced the goods and services as a byproduct of the education process.
So right? Temple would be making those decisions, like they would be the board for Pico, or who would be?
No, so essentially what would make the decisions is like this paper. It would almost be like the DNA of how society should operate. And it would begin with a university, and the university would use these organizations to sustain itself, right? And then also make other transactions to acquire infrastructure, which can further reduce its costs, but it won't be able to eliminate it until it starts networking with other universities that are doing something similar. Okay. So imagine if Penn State did, because they have a lot of agriculture out their way. So imagine if they bought a lot of the farms and stuff, and they started doing a lot of the agriculture, and we networked with them, right? So and then we just we monitored the entire, the transactions of society through blockchain technology.
Oh wow!
So you could eliminate, money at some point.
So that would keep everything like. Would that be like crypto, or like can you go more into blockchain? Like, sorry, I'm not maybe not the best person.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So blockchain, there would be no monetary value in any of this stuff. It would just be like almost like EBT, or like food stamps.
Where it's like distributed. Like everybody gets a certain amount.
Because we all use. If you look, there's a certain amount that people use all the time. We don't really go extravagant. Maybe if you're super duper rich or super duper poor, you're going to spend your money, frivolously.
Yeah.
Right,
but excessively or very frugal.
Right. If you're very rich or you're very poor, you're going to spend your money, frugally. extravagant, or not frugally, frivolously.
Yeah.
But like for the main part of society, there's a habit to it, right? There's a structure to it which we can use those data points to figure out how much, of this blockchain credits we would have to use to make transactions.
And where would this be coming from? Like, who's giving this blockchain to the average citizen? How do they acquire that?
It's an entire process that would it would begin by a single university, and it would gradually come into play. But at first, it's just a matter of just reducing the cost of society, right? So how we would do that is like whatever people are getting paid by a university at buying these businesses and providing those goods and services back to the businesses or back to the university reduces the cost of the university, right? But also reduces the cost of the businesses around it. And then if a university owns housing, we can now provide housing, and then we don't have to, and then we can reduce the amount of money we pay the people because we're now giving them housing and we're also giving them those goods and services. So we don't, because that they would automatically have to go and use that to pay for those services.
Yeah, but now they're getting them included.
Right.
So it's almost like benefits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a way that we can reduce, to use this process called a perfect public offering, and to reduce, to eliminate eventually money, and then just sustain society through this blockchain technology, which will be data driven.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean that. So in the process of trying to figure out how society was to be sustained, I saw this biological pattern that existed, which,
Yeah. Now that I think about it, obviously that thought's never crossed my mind. But there's so many examples of everything. Everything could be compared to something in the body. That pattern is very real.
Yeah. Even like these gates, right? These gates function very similar to. We have a couple different patterns, right? One, they have a skeletal system, right? They're strong. They need to hold. They provide the structure. Also, two, they prevent things almost very similar to like a cellular wall, right? How it allows certain things to go through, but it doesn't allow other things to go through. That's what this does, right? We can allow us to see through it. It provides like a barrier,
Okay. Well, super cool. Great to meet you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Same here.
Are you like publishing this somewhere? Like I know the paper. Is this the paper?
Yeah, this is a one pager. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, can I take two? One for my buddy too?
Yeah, dude.
Great. Yeah, he loves this stuff. He's a big biology guy.
So we're out here. We're talking about I guess my paper. I just finished it up.
Okay.
And the theory proposes that the universe is kind of built on these mathematical principles that are biological in nature. So essentially imagine the universe, the Big Bang happening, and as all this matter and all the energy is kind of pushed out throughout our universe in these biological patterns. And they're very rudimentary, and then as they evolve and time moves on, they become more and more complex.
Right.
Now you can see those patterns in the galaxy structures, like galaxy clusters, how they resemble the neuronal networks in the brain. Dark matter, how it resembles like cytosol or slime mold. There's like studies that talk about that. You can see these patterns are very similar to you can see these biological patterns everywhere. It's very, very similar to how you can see the wave pattern in light, or the wave pattern in sound or water. Right? There's different mediums. You can see these functional patterns of biology all around us. Right? The same way that we can see the Fibonacci pattern in the spirals of galaxies, or in hurricanes, right? Or our DNA, right? Or even in plants.
Yeah.
Right? We can see these functional patterns of biology all around us. So what do I mean by that? Like this cup here, I think Dan might have talked to you about the cup, because a cup is I like to use this one because you wouldn't think that the biological pattern exists in this cup, but it has a purpose or a functional pattern of that of a red blood cell. Okay. So very similar to how a red blood cell. So you have to have understanding of biology, so you kind of see these patterns around us. But what red blood cells do is they go from one location, they grab contents, and they distribute it. They transport it to another location, right, and they drop it off. So very similar to what this cup does, but not as efficient as biology. It takes contents from one location and distributes it to another. Now, it might be a little bit difficult to see, but imagine us sitting into a coffee shop, a bunch of people are around, right? And we put little drones on these cups. And these cups went to go grab coffee, and it came to deliver it to us. And then after we were done, it would go and to grab more coffee and bring it back to us. And then, but imagine like a bunch of people sitting around and that happening with everyone. Then you can start seeing the circulatory system happening, right? With and then with these cups functioning like a red blood cell.
Right. So do you propose the farther we get into like technological advancements, that the closer we are getting to like our biology?
So all the things that we make in human society, all of our human innovations, are subconsciously biological in nature. Like everything from that camera mimicking a lens, right, to the windows mimicking a lens, a cornea, right?
Yeah.
Why do you propose this is the case? Is there a reason behind this?
Oh, there's a bunch of, there's a bunch of studies, right? And there's a bunch of, a bunch of things that they contain these functional patterns of biology. Whether it's the melting and freezing of Antarctica, pumping like a heart, right? With the ocean currents functioning very similar to a circulatory system. And what that does, it helps to distribute the contents, the nutrients around the world, and then also help regulate the Earth's temperature.
Yeah.
And then you have like the deserts in like the Sahara deserts, where it's like digestion. What it does every day, they have the haboob, which blows across this dust filled with phosphorus, right across the oceans. It helps to provide nutrients for the oceans, the plankton, and also goes into the rainforest. So you can see like the digestive or these deserts almost functioning like a digestive system.
Okay.
Right.
How do you explain inventions that don't connect to humans or any
Oh, they all do. Whether it be like the streets function like veins and the cars like red blood cells, you have a whole field of biomimicry, right? There's a field called biomimicry, which essentially that's the whole point of that is this engineering. They use biological systems to make more efficient human innovation. I mean, even an airplane mimics a bird, right? But it's not as efficient, and they've made more efficiencies based off of different types of birds. Desalination processes, they use red blood cells for desalination processes. Even Temple, they designed surgical needles that were invasive. They didn't like destroy the skin as they pierce the skin, and they mimicked the needle or the stinger of a bee.
Okay. Do you think it's possible? I was wondering, do you think it's possible that you come to a conclusion and then you're able to make connections based off of that conclusion? For example, like how would you explain like a microphone or like a table?
Okay, so a table and a chair, right? So there's a biological pattern that exists in this, right? Now there's a couple different ones, right? So depending on how you're interpreting this, and but don't get it wrong, because what I'm proposing is that this biological pattern exists. It's an objective reality. It defines our objective reality, and the way that we interpret it, this is a table, that's subjective, right? Even though we like to think it's objective, but the purpose of this, right? The objective purpose of the objective truth, there's a biological pattern. That biological pattern functions very similar to cytosol. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with cytosol, where it holds objects in place. Mm-hmm. Now these tables and chairs, so that's what they do. They're meant to hold us in place. Now if we replaced these chairs, right, made them invisible, or we put a fluid that we floated around that was able to hold us in place, you can start seeing that this chair was structured to keep us in place, and it serves a purpose of cytosol.
Okay.
Right? Now it also contains an actual structure like a skeletal system, right? That it's, it doesn't look like a skeleton, but it's structurally strong to hold up weight as a skeletal system.
Microtubules.
Right. So,
So what are you trying to get at here? What's the overarching? So you're saying that we have those things that are biological, like a cell, or the human body, or cell systems.
Yeah,
but then you're
so
saying that at a higher level you have stuff that humans have invented, which mimics or is essentially the same thing.
These patterns, yeah. So almost a lot of our inventions are an extension of these biological functional patterns.
Right.
So the universe is created on these biological patterns.
Okay.
It has come to create the product of this pattern is life, is living organisms.
Yeah.
Right. And then in man, we were able to now manipulate our surroundings and kind of create creatively. But these creations that we create inherently or unknowingly mimic biological processes,
Right.
biological patterns.
Okay.
Now, what I do about this is, well, one, it's providing this as like a, it redefines the nature of reality, very similar to how a spherical Earth or would redefine a flat Earth, right? So by interpreting, by having an understanding that everything is biological in nature, then now we move towards saying, hey, you know what? Maybe biomimicry, this field of biomimicry, that's it.
Okay.
Right? And then we could design algorithms and design society towards structuring ourselves, towards these healthy biological patterns. Because you have healthy biological patterns and you have unhealthy biological patterns, like a disorder and order, right? And that's what defines order, and that's what defines disorder.
What would you consider an unhealthy biological pattern to be?
Well, a healthy body,
Okay.
right? Now you have a healthy body of a frog. You also have a healthy body of a human.
Right.
They're both healthy, right? However, the complexity of the human allows for a lot more potential, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot more possibilities with that. And the same thing with human society. The human society is structured very similar to a cellular society, where you get the cells, like humans. You get a bunch of cells that do the same job, called tissue. You get a bunch of people to do the same job, called an organization or business.
Right.
Right? You have a bunch of tissue together doing the same thing, called an organ. You have a bunch of businesses or organizations doing the same thing. It's called an industry.
An industry.
Right? And then you have a bunch of organs that kind of do the same thing, called an organ system. And then you have a sector, industry sector. Now you have the blood that flows throughout the body, that nurtures everything, provides it all the fundamental needs.
Right.
Very similar to money that flows throughout the economy.
Yeah.
Right, so now you can understand these like socioeconomic problems by understanding the structure of like a healthy cellular society. Like a healthy cellular society almost defines the nature, because your body is an algorithm for life. Not only is your body an algorithm for life, it also is a society of organisms, right, which equal life. Human society is a society of organisms which we need to equal life.
Right.
So do you believe it's possible to create something that isn't inherently biological? So is your claim that everything that could possibly be created has a biological explanation?
Has a biological pattern in it, yes. Now there's inefficiencies and efficiencies, right? So you can have a pattern that's inefficient versus inefficient versus efficient. And the more efficient it is, the more apparent the biological pattern is.
Okay. So say I were to give you like my phone,
Mm-hmm.
and how would you explain like what this is? I would say pretty efficient.
So what's the phone
different
being
device.
used for, right? So now if we look at the phone, right, the purpose of the phone, what's the biological pattern of the phone? Well, if you're using it to make a phone call, right, you can look at those signals that leave, almost very similar to the signaling molecules that go in to communicate to something else, right?
But I mean,
it's like signaling molecules. It's like you are a cell, and then you are sending out some type of like signal to carry out some type of action.
right, but that's the use of it. I'm talking about.
No, but that's the functional. That's the pattern in it. That's what that would serve as. It would serve as this communication tool.
Can I ask him a question?
Yeah.
So, like, if you're talking about understanding like biological systems and applying it to like society, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
where do you see like an issue within, I guess, modern society, where like that is considered like, are there things that exist in society which you would say are like not biological or biological but in a bad way? You know what I mean?
So there are inefficiencies, and I
Okay.
think that our current society that we live in now is inefficient. And that's my whole paper here stemmed from me trying to figure out how to make society more sustainable.
Okay.
So in the process of doing that, and the title of that paper was called a perfect public offering.
Yeah.
So if you guys are familiar with economics and like the public offering of a company, instead of a company selling their shares to the public through a public offering, when they go public, it's only you're selling it to individuals in the public. You're not selling to the entire public.
Yeah.
I wrote up a concept, the economic process, where they can the company can sell their shares to a nonprofit organization.
Okay.
And because the nonprofit organization is owned by the entire society, you can legally structure that company to now have to operate in the best interest of the entire society.
Okay.
Now, I argue in a paper that nonprofit universities, right, like Temple University, are these nonprofit organizations that can carry out this process because they have these infrastructures which can subsidize a lot of the cost of the business.
Yeah, right.
So imagine if Temple University owned and operated Pico and all the different utility companies, and they overlap the education infrastructures with the work infrastructures where they produce the goods and services as a byproduct of the education process, right? And then they're able to pay those students or faculty and employees less because now not only are they giving all of those goods and services to them for free, right? They're also providing housing.
Yeah.
Right? So now you don't have to pay them the money that they're going to automatically pay back, for using it. Like, what would you use your money for? Well, we could use it for rent, use it for electricity, right? But what happens if you didn't have to pay that stuff? Well, then we don't have to pay you for that because
it's
so you can start reducing it. Now, if you start networking with other universities, right, then you can start bringing down the cost even more, and then you can monitor all the transactions through a blockchain technology. Okay. And I'm not saying that we're going to just, because the goal of this is to kind of eliminate monetary, like money, and just kind of almost do transactionary where everything is just like a blockchain. Blockchain technology allows for the reduced corruption of data.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I don't understand what the blockchain is, like, at all. Do you?
I mean, right now they're using it. They're interpreting it as some type of currency, right? As like a monetary currency, where in actuality it's just a way of coding something where it makes it very difficult to. Makes it very difficult to corrupt because by us connecting together. Imagine if we were to have a timeline of our life, right? A blockchain is like the documentation of that.
Yeah, right.
The visual documentation of that. And like, hey, there's going to be no other time that we've interconnected like this, right? So that's built in. So now if I interact with someone else, they've interacted with me already interacting with you.
Right.
Right. So then that's kind of in that's coded in their chain.
Okay.
Right. So imagine if their chain has me interacting with them, but they know that I interacted with you. So like it almost kind of creates a way that you can't fuck with the information, especially during at the time of AI, when like a lot of fake things can be created. Right. We can use this blockchain technology to almost create these receipts of truth.
Okay.
Right. These true forms of like knowing what's true or not. Right. Like imagine if we had these Apple AirTags. And everywhere we walk, it just documents it so we know where we're at what point in time. I know that might sound like Big Brother-ish, but like, what happens if someone tries to create a fake video of you saying, "Yo, I just had sex with this other girl," and your girl's like, "What? Where were you at last night?" But no, look, I was here.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But obviously, it would make doing negative things and bad things kind of mess that up. But blockchain technology would allow for essentially more security. Okay. Despite the paradox of having less secure, more transparency.
So it's a trade-off, right?
There's a trade-off, but like when you're just trying to make the world a better place and do your own thing, it doesn't matter at that point.
I gotcha.
And I think with everyone TikToking nowadays, they're already kind of airing out all their shit.
Yeah. All right. It's nice talking to you.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you so much. All right, man. So we're here talking about reality. As you saw in the front of this. I'm here to talk about. What are your thoughts on reality? Because I've wrote a paper.
Okay, so maybe tell me more about what your thoughts are, so I can kind of understand where you're coming from with this question.
Absolutely. Actually, I'm Ron. What's your name?
Andre.
Nice
Andre Brown.
Andre Brown.
Andre Brown 11 on Instagram.
There we go. So I wrote a paper, and my theory is that biology's patterns exist in everything. So very similar. So the universe is governed by these biological patterns,
right.
And these biological patterns define the framework for our reality, for our mathematical reality, like universe. So the best way to explain how these biological patterns exist is very similar to the wave patterns, wave in light, light moves in a wave, or light moves in sound, or light moves in water,
I believe that,
or waves move in water, or very similar to the Fibonacci sequence.
Okay.
The Fibonacci pattern.
Fibonacci pattern. I don't know the research of it, but that sounds interesting.
But you know the wave, though.
The wave,
right? There's wave
the design of the wave, the ups and downs.
The wave pattern. So that exists in light. It exists. That same pattern exists in water, and it exists in sound.
Right.
So very similar to how even those patterns exist across different mediums.
Right.
Biology's patterns, these functional patterns, exist all around us.
All around us, right.
So
and you create you. What I'm asking you is, so are you saying that is what creates reality, is waves and patterns?
Yeah, so they define, they're hidden within, right in front of us.
Right.
And it defines a single truth, a common truth. So it's a common way to measure reality.
Okay.
So for example, like this cup, there's a biological pattern in this cup.
That creeps it what it is.
So what is the functional purpose of this cup that relates to biology?
To hold liquids, to provide for others.
So what biological pattern does that?
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's super stumping.
Okay.
I didn't even think the question was that in depth.
Right.
I was honestly approaching it from a different angle.
So imagine this. Okay, we'll start simple. These streets right here,
yeah,
and the cars functions very similar to veins, and whatchamacallit, veins in like red blood cells.
Right.
You know, if you look at it from higher above,
right,
you start
you would
seeing
see
the circulatory system.
Okay, I see what you're
and
going with.
Transporting these nutrients for society, essentially, right? We help sustain society.
Okay. I like that.
Even this cup right here contains a biological pattern like a red blood cell. So if you're familiar with what a red blood cell does, a red blood cell takes contents from one location, distributes it to another location within the body.
Right.
And now the same thing with this cup. This cup has a pattern of a red blood cell. What it does, it takes contents from one location and
moves it somewhere else. Right.
Now it's not as efficient, right?
But it does it.
Right?
At a level.
But if we strapped a drone to these cups and we were in a coffee shop, and we start seeing these cups float around, right? And after we were done drinking our coffee, it would go back and refill it and bring it back to us.
Wow.
You can start seeing like all
patterns.
this cup, or you can start seeing this pattern of a circulatory system. Right?
Oh wow, that's super deep. Okay.
Not just that, you have the melting and freezing of Antarctica. Right, so each revolution around the sun, Antarctica melts and it freezes, melts and freezes, and it pumps like a heart, right? And then you have these the ocean currents, like a circulatory system, right? And it provides similar functionalities to, biological.
I think you are a genius. First of all, I want to let you know that I think your platform is built on a lot of what we call facts. And I think you are at the high level, whatever you do, and believe that is a compliment coming from myself, because I don't even understand half of what you said, but I understand what you mean. So what I want to tell you is, this question, I wasn't even going to approach it from where you approached it, but I now want research and more on what you just told me, because that's super dope. Yeah, this guy right here is real. But to answer your question of what is reality, I think you first had to understand the person in which you asked that question to. Because everybody's reality, to me, is based on
it's a little different,
what they see.
Right.
If I never saw, a deer, my reality is to be afraid of that deer.
Right.
As opposed to somebody who may have come from the upstate Pennsylvania who shoots deers.
Right.
Or hunts deers, you know what I'm saying? So their reality is a little bit different than mine. But
and that's what I'm saying, is that like it's almost, and that's a subjective reality, right? So that what you just explained right now, like each person having their own personal reality, right? That's a subjective reality. This is the reality that we see, and the thing that connects everything together are these biological patterns, right? They connect everything.
So I see you got here key concepts, right? So I like number 3. I'm drawn immediately to number 3 for whatever reason. Subjectivity and objectivity.
Right.
Now, you wrote this. I haven't got a chance to really study this, but what do you mean by that?
So, subjectivity and objectivity. So the objective reality, right? So objectivity is like this truth that exists, and without a truth that is inherent truth, and then subjectivity is like a personal truth that we have. Right. So what you were talking about, how like the deer.
Yeah.
Talking about the deer, that's this subjective truth, right? This subjectivity, because like we can look at something and we can interpret it.
So wait, right now we just talking about subjectivity, right? That's what you explaining right this second. Subjectivity.
Right,
okay,
exactly.
so all right, so subject. Okay.
And then
objectivity.
Objectivity is this inherent truth, right? This truth that exists underneath everything, that connects everything. That
so am I right to say one is a born truth and one is a learned truth? Is that a way to say it?
Absolutely, yes.
So now let's talk about that then, if that's okay with you. This is your platform. I don't know how much time we have. But so I take it as, learn and born truth, right? I believe, to me, and I could be wrong, I think racism, the trait of racism is a born reality. You know what I'm saying? The reason why I say that is because some people don't even know why it exists. And then they get around people that's not like themselves, and it becomes a learned reality of what it really is. It's just not knowing. You know, people not racist because they are, sometimes they don't understand why.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that I've never seen someone outside of my race to express things that I didn't get to ask them because I didn't know them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you never interact with somebody else outside of that, that will become your reality.
Right.
And that consumes you to the point of it shows in your actions, which racism is an act of not liking other races.
Well, I think you could be a racist, or you could be a bicyclist.
Yeah, you could
right?
be any cis.
No,
yeah.
any cis, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just if you're not exposed to
Like,
enough things, then
right.
that is what you're used to, right?
It's like that's like a spider.
You could be a vegetarianist.
Vegetarian. You could be against vegetarian, right?
You-
Everything can be a
or
tism.
or meatist.
But I think for people right now, race and religion and all these things are real close, so it's triggering.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, it's people who would never get with the bike movement. I'd rather ride a bike. You know, people, and they have a strong stance on that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's so many it's always. I don't like the idea of yin and yang, but I understand it. It has to be a balance. Where there's good, there's evil.
Yeah.
But I just think that's what creates reality, I think. Too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on, like, religion? Are you a religious man?
I'm a religious man. What's
your religion?
I was raised Baptist.
Okay.
Around, so I was raised a Baptist, right? But I grew up around Muslims. So I'm devout to the Christian faith, but I understand what Muslims do and what the importance of prayer is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my religion is also based on prayer, but I'm not required by by the book that I read, the Bible, to pray several times a day. Now,
so the Bible. So you're familiar with the Bible, right?
Familiar with the Bible. Yeah.
Now, the Bible, I think in Genesis, right? They say man made in the image of God.
Right.
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 So if we interpret this God as the universe as God, right?
Right.
As the universe as the personification, or the God is the personification of the universe. That's
right.
It's turned into a person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we understand the universe as God,
right,
and then man is made in the image of God, right? So imagine this biologically patterned universe coming to form and to create humans.
Yeah. Right.
Coming to create man, right?
That's super dope.
So
I mean, that's super dope. What you saying?
And not only that, right? So, like, imagine this biologically patterned universe, right?
Yeah.
Living organisms, life, are the culmination of these patterns. We are almost the end result of this process. And then in man, we are like perfected, where we now have the ability, this cognitive freedom to manipulate the land, right? To almost create it, but we create it.
So we're gods to somebody else, you believe?
Yeah, but we create all of our things in harmony with this biological pattern, not even knowing it, right? Like, even with this cup.
Super dope.
You know, with the cars, with the way that our society is structured. When you have a human, very similar to a cell, right? You have a bunch of humans that work in an organization, right? Or work together doing a common task. You have an organization or a business.
Right.
The same thing you have tissue, right? A bunch of cells that are doing the same thing, they create a tissue. Now you have a bunch of organizations that do the same thing. You call that an industry. Now you have a bunch of tissue doing the same things. You call that an organ. Right?
He was super lit, man.
So you can see like an organ is very similar to an industry, and then you have a bunch of different industries, right, to help society function.
Right? Like a body.
You have different organ systems, right? And they all do different things.
So what was your question? You said what was about religion? You said
about religion. So, like, I was just trying to connect.
I get that.
So what I'm trying to say, Andre, right?
Andre, yeah.
Is that our bodies have these patterns within us. They reveal the patterns that allow us to understand everything around us. So very similar to a lot of our religious texts, right? The Atman and Brahman, or even...
God, emergency, y'all. We in the middle of the street.
Speaking of the body, there's probably a dead one in there.
I hope not. Ain't none of my folks. But with the religious thing that you said, I think that's beautiful how you broke that down. And I believe that each figure that's given religion was connected somehow, because they had to have a rival. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what society bases itself on. Like Confucius rivaled someone, and Jesus rivaled some. Like everyone kind of it was in place, and I feel like you believe what you believe based on your like that inner learning, and then you kind of branch out, which is that learning, right? So with religion, you feel connected to the earth, like you said. That's the organism of it. I don't think I created it myself. You know what I'm saying? What's up?
Yeah.
I ain't wake up one day and was like, "Sun, come up, come back here." That shit not here. I ain't busy. I'm just doing a little podcast. This is one of my first runners. She in college now.
Yes.
Say hi to people.
Hi.
Yeah.
That was random. Okay. Yeah.
I'm on campus. I'll be here.
Okay, I'm gonna see you later. I'm on my way to class.
All right, be safe. I got you. But reality is, like you said, is based on what you see and what you learn. We're learning that now, but I think the same thing is religion.
But it's not reality, right? That's I mean that's
a learned reality. You think
that's our interpretation of the reality,
right?
But there's this underlying truth that exists, which is these biological patterns, which my paper tries to express.
I like this paper, and this is called "The Biological Framework for a Mathematical Universe," written by the man himself, Ronald.
Yes, sir.
Amazing work, brother. I love this piece.
Yeah, man.
I encourage you to get a copy if you're not already tapped in with this man. This is beautiful.
I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for coming to your platform. What's the name of your platform?
Biologicaluniverse.org.
Peace, y'all. You already know what it is. It's your boy B Nawar. Follow me on Instagram. I love you.
I'm out here. I just finished a paper. It's titled "A Biological Framework for a Mathematical Universe."
Okay.
It pretty much proposes that everything in reality or the universe is created on these mathematical principles that are essentially biological in nature. So imagine like the universe unfolding in these biological patterns. So these biological patterns exist everywhere in reality, and I mean they can be seen everywhere between the streets, and how the streets and the cars resemble like a circulatory system, right? The melting and freezing of Antarctica, right, pumps like a heart, and then there's ocean currents, like a circulatory system, right? You have the galaxy structures, very similar to cytosol, right, and dark matter, very similar to cytosol. You have this cup, very similar to a red blood cell. So what's the function of a red blood cell, right? Function of a red blood cell is to take contents from one location to deliver it to another location, right? This contains that same functional pattern of biology, but it's not as efficient, right? It grabs coffee from one location and delivers it. Now, it's a little bit difficult to see. You're looking at it, you're like, this is just a cup, right? But if we sat down at a coffee shop and we strapped drones to these cups, and they started, after we were done the cup, it would go back and refill it and bring it back to us. You can start seeing, you watch all these cups start floating around, you can start seeing the circulatory system happening, right? These as red blood cells. Not only that, but even in the production of music, right? When we input our fingers into an instrument and then music comes out, that biological pattern is of like protein creation. So when you have a ribosome and you have an RNA that goes inside the ribosome, right, it produces proteins. So like we have these biological patterns exist everywhere, and these are just a few examples of that.
It makes complete sense. I've been looking into the Thoth tablets, as above, so below.
Yeah.
It just makes sense that what we have inside of us is mirrored in the macro realm.
Exactly, and it goes to the religious aspect of it. Is that like, see, because these biological patterns are in this universe, right? That the universe is created with these biological patterns. They come, the final result, right? The product of these patterns are living organisms, right? And we, inside of us, have these patterns that allow us to understand the patterns around us, right? This
Why else
as
would
above
we
as
develop
below.
pattern recognition?
Exactly. Well, the whole pattern recognition, I mean, that goes, I'm trying to think if I want to go down that direction, but no.
That's
no,
right. If it gets existential, that's fine.
No, because to go with the pattern recognition, right? So essentially, consciousness, right? And what is consciousness?
Awareness.
Is awareness for this pattern. Now, hear me out, right? So imagine this. I'll explain to you the creation and evolution of consciousness, right? And then you tell me what your thoughts on it. Okay.
All right.
So imagine this biologically patterned universe unfolding and coming to create the Earth, right? Now the Earth is forming and has all these processes that's happening on Earth. Now they don't look biological. We look at it as probably like volcanic stuff that's happening, but like all these processes, even though it doesn't look biological, the patterns of it are is rudimentarily biological in nature. Now it comes to create like a little an area where it produces the first living organisms, right? All the elements come together, it produces living organisms. Now, in that moment, living organisms almost resemble this pattern of what their surroundings looks like, right? Now, in order for those living organisms to survive, they have to recognize the patterns, right, within their environment, which is very simple at that time, right? Yeah. In order to survive. If they survive, they're conscious for survival patterns. If they don't recognize those patterns, they die and they're unconscious. Okay. Right? So as this Earth is forming, right? As this Earth is forming in complexity, it evolves in complexity. It creates new variables in the environment, which now these organisms have to like reason. Right? They have to recognize the patterns. If they don't, they die or are considered unconscious. If they recognize it and they survive, they're conscious, right? Makes sense. So imagine now, this is what defines this primary measure of consciousness, right? Is just this ability to survive. Now, the evolution as the Earth evolves even more, evolves in complexity and diversity, it creates more complex and more diverse types of thinking, right? So now you have a diversity, with more complexity within the Earth. You have this increase of diversity. Now, that diverse environments forces these organisms to have to recognize the patterns within each of these environments. Well, that creates the whole origin of species. These creates these different species, and they have to recognize those patterns in order to survive. If they do, they survive, they're conscious. If not, they're unconscious. Now, it gets more complex within those environments, where now it forces those organisms to have to cooperate, right? So now they realize these and the whole entire time, these patterns in the environment are these biological patterns. They're just like not traditionally biological as we see it, right? Now, I guess we'll fast forward everything to humans, right? So the whole evolution happens to humans, but humans are still, up until this point of humans, right? All of the living organisms were almost they were stuck to have to abide by the rules of their environment, right? They had these survival constraints. Okay. But what humans did is that they recognized patterns to free themselves from their survival constraints, right? To insulate themselves from this survival, like agriculture, right? So these different things, by recognizing these patterns to free themselves from their environment, they have now gained this cognitive freedom, right? This ability to think freely. And now, so this freedom to think freely is what we kind of traditionally think is consciousness, right? Where in actuality, it's just like kind of like the entire time the Earth has kind of evolved, trained living organisms as this pattern recognition engine, right? And now this pattern recognition engine was just set free, essentially, and now it's just recognizing patterns on its own. It's doing its own thing. It's almost like running its own kind of program, right? It's just kind of doing whatever it does within surviving, right? Because it's already insulated itself from these survival constraints. So now it has a lot of this playroom to kind of move around and do whatever it wants. But it gets to a certain point where if you don't abide by these survival rules, right, these rules of biology, these rules of life, you start reducing that latency, that buffer. If that all makes sense, is that kind of? Can you see some of that stuff?
You had lots of points. I want to touch on the beginning ones first. You said organic and inorganic, how we came from this giant pile of rock and like primordial soup, not much real like organic matter, so to speak. But that's kind of like the chicken and the egg conversation. Kinetic energy versus potential.
What do you mean?
Like, is there really a line between organic and inorganic? Because if we stemmed from this material that isn't, so to speak, conscious, where are we drawing the line?
What do you mean?
Our decision making, our reasoning skills, like the ability to choose left or right. Because meteors are just right now flowing with gravity across the universe. They don't really have that mindset of, oh, I can go this way, I can go that way.
Correct.
We as humans, we're walking down the street, we're going, okay, I gotta go this way to class, I gotta go this way. I bumped into a stranger, I can have this conversation.
Right. So I'm saying there's different levels of consciousness. Like, so the universe is like very, very similar to like in your cells, right? You have your cells in your body.
Okay. So
and
you're
your
talking
cells
about, like,
develop.
dimensional thinking?
But like even inside your cells, there are processes that are happening. But if you shrunk yourself down quantumly, right, and we're in there, I would propose that it's very similar to the universe, right? In these processes that are happening, but like in a very whatchamacallit. But like, so these, even though you have these things like these meteors and asteroids that are floating through Earth or through space, these processes, they don't have consciousness in the sense of like, just like inside your cell, those little processes don't have consciousness, right? But they are carrying out some particular pattern, and that pattern is in harmony with biology for life.
Okay, so if I were to equate this to like a computer, the electrical signal would be like very low level conscious, and the CPU would be like the conscious being, because that is the thing making the actions. It's not the thing that's carrying them out.
I would say, if you want to make an analogy to a computer, it would be like the back end operating system, like the firmware, would be this pattern that exists that everything's running on, and then whatever the program is like these different programs that we have on top of it would be almost how we interpret reality, or how we. I mean, it's more consciousness.
I guess I'm just confused here because we're talking about consciousness and reasoning and decision making and patterns. Mm-hmm. Is there free will?
So the best way I can explain free will is this: your cells in your body, right? In order for you to have free will to do whatever you want to do, there's a paradox that exists where your cells have to carry out a particular action in order for you to achieve those goals, right? Now, if we gave all your cells free will to do whatever they wanted to do, right, what would happen is that now they would have this free will to do something like individually, right? But then now they lose this potential. They lose the sustainability of this whole, right? And also, too, very similar to like if you were an entrepreneur and you want to achieve a goal, you want to have that freedom to achieve this goal, there are certain things that you are forced to do. You don't have the free will to choose otherwise, that you have to do to. So there's a paradox between that can be understood through this biological pattern.
So I guess like we're just constantly deciding individuality or collective.
It's the same. It's like there's a paradox that exists within this, which can be understood through these biological patterns, and that's kind of like why I wrote this paper. I saw like the implications for is that it allows us to understand a lot of very philosophical concepts, and it defines them through biology's patterns.
No.
Just by understanding that concept from the perspective of biology.
Can I ask what intrigued you to write this paper?
I was writing a paper on society. I was trying to find a way to sustain society, and in that process of doing that, how would you operate society sustainably and like try to move it away from like capitalism? And I found a pattern of biology in human society, and then I started seeing that pattern in other things.
Huh. That's got to be an interesting read, I bet.
Yeah. So which one? The economics one?
Your paper.
Oh yeah, I have this is a one page of it, but then the other paper can be downloaded.
Okay. On
there, and this is just a one page brief, and then on the back is just some scientific research that supports it, and then the website right there to download or read it and download. It's right there.
This whole paper's
biological
on the
universe.
website?
Yep.
I'm gonna have to look this up. I'm very interested in like the scientific aspect of what I see in religion. So I've been drawing connections between Buddhism, Taoism, even Christianity, paganism.
So in here, right? So the theme of, so I believe in this perennial wisdom, right? Are you familiar with perennial wisdom? Perennial wisdom.
Define that word for me, perennial.
So perennial is just, so perennial wisdom is this concept where all of the truth, all of our religions stem from a common truth.
Okay.
Right. A lot of their motifs, you can see a lot of like same ideas you can see across in different religions. So like, if we look at the concept of man made in the image of God, right? If we understand that God or the universe is God, and man made in the image of it, right? This pattern, right? In the universe is this biological pattern, man made in the image of this biological pattern universe, right? So then that would help explain that. like you talked about before, the microcosm and macrocosm, right? So in Islam, right, you have the batin and zahir. The batin is the inner reality, and the zahir is the external reality. And by the whirling dervishes, what they do is they twirl around in circles, right, and they contemplate the nature of God within themselves, right? You have the Atman and Brahman concepts in the Upanishads, which is like the Vedic text, the Hindu and Buddhism, where by understanding the inner reality, right, understanding the I'm proposing that by understanding these biological patterns within us, we can understand the Brahman, which is the
within,
external.
without, as opposed to below.
Exactly. So it's imagine back in the paper I write too, that what I'm proposing is that there existed back then some more advanced civilization. I try to teach this concept to the people, right? Whether because they were just passing by and they taught that information, or if we had another civilization that was more advanced and we have fallen at some point.
Okay.
But imagine teaching it to people who had no concept of religion, no concept of religion, no concept of science, of the cosmos, right, of physics, of biology. They didn't have any understanding of that.
They have their environment.
So you imagine trying to teach the universal knowledge, right, to people. It would come off very religious, right?
Yeah, you can say that.
So a lot of these texts, even in Roman texts, when they talk about the monad, right? The monad, or the circled dot, right, which is represented by the circled dot. And what does a circled dot look like? It looks like a cell.
Yeah.
Right? And that represents the God or like the universe. Right?
Isn't that also like Egyptian symbol for the sun, or some kind of runic symbol for the sun?
I'm not sure on that, but I do know, to go with the Egyptian stuff, they talk about life, right? They have the Ankh, which is life, and then they have the Jed, which is like this pillar, right? So, you know, they're very adamant on life, and that's what biology is, right? Biology is this, you know, it's the purpose, man. So when you say, what's the purpose of life? Life is the
Just to live
purpose,
it.
right? And not only is it life, but what life brings, right? Life brings like potential, brings possibilities, you know.
I agree with that. It's just all potential.
Yeah.
We're both in kinetic energy and have potential energy.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on more of the pattern recognition and not pattern recognition, but just seeing overall patterns throughout the universe.
What's
To
that?
me, it all feels like a cleansing system. Like we have the seasons that cleanse certain ecosystems and bring life to new ones. It's constant death and rebirth, constantly flushing out the old and bringing in the new.
Right.
So when we talk about global warming and just all these disasters, we know that we have diseases every 100 years. That's got to be a cleansing system.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have black holes, just constantly sucking in these things. I don't know what happens afterwards when you go in them. It might be a wormhole. It might be I don't even know if white holes exist. I'm going on a tangent.
No,
What
no,
I
man,
mean
it's
to
cool.
say
No.
is everything to me feels like a cleansing system. We're taking away the sick and the old, and we're reborning them into life.
No, I can see how you can think that, and I think your own. I think it's true. It's
I just
true.
like to
It's
see
true.
the
It's
scientific aspect of
no,
it.
it's true. If you think about, I think we have to look at it like the melting and freezing of Antarctica, right? So this is it's a good way to understand our ecosystem and almost like the world kind of cleansing itself. So right now we're at a complexity of our Earth where we almost have a heart, right? So Antarctica melts and freezes like a heart, and it pumps this highly salinated water throughout our world, or the globe, and it helps to circulate, nutrients around for fish and marine life, and also helps to regulate the temperature of the Earth. It creates all the wind currents and stuff like that.
Same
Now-
way we do with our body.
Right, the same thing with our body. Now imagine what's happening now is that that's the melting and freezing. It's just melting, right? And it's not really freezing. So it's almost like having a heart palpitation, imagine we're almost de-evolving into something. I don't know if you're familiar with insects and how insects their heart works. Is that when they move around, their blood just sloshes around, and they don't have a circulatory system like people do. So they just kind of sloshes around, and it's almost like we're having that de-evolution of humanity of Earth. So I guess what you're going back to, what you're talking about with, this cleansing, it's almost like a natural repercussion of negative consequences. It's like a negative consequences. Every action is equal to opposite reaction. So the more that we don't live in harmony with our environment, the more that it's going to affect the environment, and then the environment is going to create a whole new scenario, which then will affect us.
It's like punching a brick wall. It's never harmonious.
Yeah.
I've been working on harmony recently, and I feel like a lot smoother going through the world. It feels like I am one tiny little pixel on a giant painting. Like I do my part, and I'm flowing beautifully. But if I try and stray away from who I am, it feels like I'm met with so much blockage and brick walls.
Yeah.
So I very much take the as above, so below very deeply, because quite literally, I am a tiny aspect of the most expanded version of the universe.
Absolutely.
Like how electrons rotate around the nucleus of an atom.
Right.
Planets rotate around the sun.
Yeah.
Sun rotates around the Milky Way galaxy, and so forth and so forth.
Right. No, I agree.
It's all beautiful.
You know, what's funny is that, like, you know, the best way I explain how this pattern exists is that very similar to how the wave pattern, right, can be seen in light, or it can be seen in sound, or seen in water. We can see these biological patterns exist in everything across mediums, just like it exists, like the wave pattern exists across mediums. Or very similar to how the Fibonacci pattern, right, exists in the spirals of galaxies, in the spirals of hurricanes, right, in in ferns and different plants, in our DNA, right, in the spiral in our DNA. Now, Fibonacci's pattern exists across multitude of different mediums. This biological pattern, this functional pattern, exists in everything, and it's just a matter of understanding even like the structures of our buildings, like, you know, the framing of it, right, functions like a skeletal system. Right, the chairs that we're sitting on and the table that we're sitting on has a biological pattern. It functions very similar to cytosol. What does cytosol do? Well, cytosol holds objects in place within like a cell, right? It's almost like, I mean, if this was all invisible, right, and we were just like floating on this fluid, right, you could start seeing this pattern, but this serves the purpose of that. Now, it also contains a pattern of like a structural pattern, like a skeleton system. So like, it's almost like a Frankenstein when it gets to the human innovation. But like even the whole field of biomimicry, right, kind of supports this idea of these biological patterns all around us.
Yeah. I wish I had more to say.
No, I appreciate the input that you brought in, and, you know, it kind of helped to.
This was a nice discussion. I feel like you'd be a good teacher.
I appreciate that.
I feel like I learned a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
I guess, I don't know about learn, but definitely like
provoke the mind to like
yes.
think. And now once it's true, then you've learned a lot. Once just like, you know, it's only a matter of time, you know. And that's why we're kind of out today, is to kind of just to talk about it and kind of get it out.
I appreciate that you're doing this. I feel like a lot of people need to open their eyes to what's outside of them.
Yeah. And look into themselves, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
All right, I definitely have to get to class.
Yeah, I appreciate your time.
It was a pleasure talking to you, man.
Absolutely. So, so today we're talking about reality.
Reality?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on reality? Do you have any idea like how to kind of measure reality, or
just it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Nothing more.
Nothing more. Well, yeah, I'm kind of bringing people out to kind of see what their thoughts on reality. I know a lot of people, talk about the simulation theory and different aspects.
Yeah. And the thing is, I love the YMCA. It's a great organization.
YMCA for what?
They help young people get to foster care, in the right way. That makes sense. It's a great platform that people can use for, yeah, man, it's just nice.
No, that's cool. Well, yeah, so to deal with the reality, I wrote a paper for the past 10 years, and I just kind of finished up, and I'm out here kind of talking about it. And I guess it deals a lot with reality and consciousness and the objective and subjective reality. Essentially, that there exists, the theory is that there exists a pattern within reality. It underlies everything. And by understanding this pattern, you can understand the true objective nature of things. So this pattern is biology. So imagine there's a very similar. There's a biological pattern that exists in everything.
Yeah.
Like even in this cup. So this cup, what is the functional pattern of biology in this cup? You're looking at this thing like, this is just a Starbucks cup,
it's
right?
It's just a Starbucks cup. Yeah.
Right, but like if I told you that there's a biological pattern inside that,
of course there is.
Of this cup, what is it? Like, what is the biological?
Again, it's about deep thinking. Like, do I want to think about that? Do I? I don't know.
Right, and I think that's what keeps.
But I could.
But that keeps you in the subjective reality. So the objective reality, right? If you want to understand the truth of reality, there's just like this biological pattern that we can understand everything, and that can help us guide how we do things within reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So if you could just try to figure out like a biological pattern in that cup, what would you?
Well, here's the thing. It's kind of a dimension. So in terms of cups, they make cups in a certain way that makes profit. So they're going to maximize profit in a way that makes sense.
Okay.
It makes sense, right? So Starbucks, big company, they run on caffeine. That's the business they run. They hook on these young influencers so that they could, buy their product. You're just a product.
Okay, so like I guess where I'm trying to go with this is that there's a functional pattern that's biological in this cup.
Yeah.
Now, so this cup contains a biological pattern of a red blood cell. So you're like Ron. My name's Ron. What's your name?
Jake.
Jake. Nice to meet you, Jake.
Yep.
You're like, how is there a red blood cell pattern in this cup?
There could be. I mean, if you think of it that way.
Yeah, so what does a red blood cell do? A red blood cell's purpose, right, its function is to gather contents from one location and to move to another location and distribute those contents. It's like a vessel for distributing.
Makes sense.
The same thing with this cup, right? This cup grabs contents from one location and distributes it. Now, it's not as
glass half, cup empty, so how you think of it, mindfulness. Cup empty, like cup empty, like cup full, you know what I mean?
Right, like
this cup is full right now because it has something in it. It has something in it.
There's contents in there, yeah.
It's not exactly full, but it's full because it has a content in it.
Yeah.
There's content there.
I think, so to kind of make this analogy a little bit more clear, like say if we're in a coffee shop, right?
Yeah.
And we're sitting down and we strap drones to these coffee cups, and when we're empty, they went back and they grabbed another cup of coffee, right? And then they flew back to us. And imagine just sitting down around this like coffee shop, and you see these cups going back and forth. You can start seeing the circulatory system happening, right?
Yeah.
And a red blood, and the functional purpose of this is a red blood cell.
Sure.
Even these streets and these cars going back and forth, very similar veins and
similar
red blood
vein.
cells.
It's just like a big ant farm.
Yeah. I mean, even the structure, the frame.
You know the show Alien Ant Farm?
Huh?
On Disney.
No, I haven't watched it.
If you just look at the word closely, Alien Ant Farm. Aliens could be real. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Ant farm, we're the ants.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on alien life?
It could be real.
Yeah.
Area 51. The government, they hide a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you see all like the reports from the U.S. Navy and shit.
Yeah, I study the media, so I really enjoy it.
What areas of the media study?
What areas?
Yeah.
Meta.
So everything.
Meta
as in like what?
Meta AI,
Facebook,
Zuckerberg, Nike, Google, Disney.
Nice. So what are you specializing in?
Media studies and production. I want to go in the sports field and create stuff for the sports field.
Nice.
I actually have an Eagles Instagram page, if they don't mind the plug. 5,000 followers.
Sure.
I've been busy, so I haven't had time, but here's some of my work. I'll get the Dark Knight here. See that? Go to the camera. Dark Knight, my favorite
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've been on the news multiple times for sports because of sports. Sports has really saved me. It's
nice.
just
I'll be filming the Eagles home opener party over at Xfinity Live. There's a concert, I think, Lord Luxury or Luxury Lord or some shit like that. Their duo DJ set playing. Yeah, I'll be filming that. I specialize in flying drones. That's what I do for a living.
Got it, man.
But
make it big.
Yeah,
just make it big.
Yeah, dude, that's what I do for a living. And then this is just a project I've been working on, but prior to like my filming. My filming was just a byproduct of me writing. So I wrote on reality.
Advice to you: the 2024 class is the best class right now.
Yeah,
it's the best class right now. The younger they get, the better in terms of knowledge, because they have new ideas.
It's amazing, right? It's amazing how much information's out there.
Yeah. Because it's an election year. They're 18 years old. This is the most interesting election in American history, in my opinion. That's my opinion, though. No election has been more interesting than this one. It's not even close.
No, very cool, man. This is before you go, this is like the one-page paper
Yeah.
of the theory, and yeah, man. I mean, if you can, have a chance to take a look at it. Yeah, absolutely, man. I think this is some big shit, man. This is like, do you know how Copernicus and Galileo, how they realized that the world was spherical, right? And that changed from flat. Everyone thought the world was flat.
Peck,
and then I know that is it the
spherical. It's hidden in shows.
So imagine if what that did, right? Allow for like navigation, understanding the world and how everything functions. That this right here is going to change how people understand and interact within the world. It's going to be the next Galileo/Copernicus event.
Yeah.
Whether you believe it or not, it's okay. At least it's on record.
Do you think one could save the world?
I think a good idea. I think it definitely nowadays, yeah, man. Why not?
World's yours.
Huh?
The world's yours.
Yeah.
The world's yours. You just gotta make
David Guetta, man. The world is mine.
Make it. Make it.
And you know what? It's so funny. I think whatever you think you believe you can do, right? You should be able to do it. And I think people don't raise their standards high enough. So that's why they don't achieve shit, I think if people disbelieve in someone else's stuff, they're only projecting their own feelings on themselves,
Yeah. Again, my parents have been hard on me at the moment. I'm bipolar, so I just had a really bad episode. I'm going through a lot mentally, and I'm trying to get my outlet here, like really just find I don't want to be home, but my parents are forcing me to be hybrid because of things that happened to me. With my mind sharp as hell.
Yeah.
And they have to understand to let go, and it's not easy for them because they've raised me my entire life, and they're Gen X, and Gen X, I feel like they're stuck up and they're on their own ways right now, and it's just like annoying, and it annoys me.
Well, I think it's the economy is not as where it should be, but
why do you think that? Why do you think that? Selfish people. Gen X is selfish.
No, I think
Gen X is selfish.
What?
My opinion. This
That's
is my
your
opinion. The majority of Gen X is selfish. My opinion.
Yeah, I think
millennials are getting there. They're good. Gen Z's the best right now, and Alpha's alpha.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the works.
Interesting.
That's my perspective.
Cool. Well, Jake, right?
Yeah.
It was nice
You'll
chatting
see
with
me
you.
around, don't worry.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
of course, man. Nadu?
Yes.
Nadu? I'm Ron.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm out here. I just finished a paper. Took me about
Okay.
10 years to write. It's about reality.
Okay.
So I'm out here just talking about it, kind of get the word out. Because I kind of went through it, not through academia, but it is supported.
Okay.
So the theory is that the universe contains these biological patterns. So everything in the universe is biological.
Everything.
Everything. So very similar to. So imagine the universe, the Big Bang happening, and the patterns that all the matter was thrown out at.
Yes.
They move in these biological patterns. Now they're very simple, right? Until it comes to the Earth and the formation of those. It gets more complex as time moves on.
Okay.
So these biological patterns exist, very similar to how the wave pattern exists in light.
Okay.
Are you familiar with wave patterns?
Somehow.
So light moves like a wave, right? Also, water moves like a wave,
Okay.
right? And then also sound moves like a wave.
Okay.
So those are three different mediums, right? But that same pattern can be seen across them. So very similar to that, biology's patterns can be seen everywhere around us.
Okay.
And what do I mean by that? These glasses right here, right? The purpose of these glasses, right, function very similar to our eyes,
Yes.
right? This cup here, there's a biological pattern in this cup.
Yes.
Do you see it? Do you know what it is? There's a functional pattern. What's the purpose? If there was a purpose that was very similar to a biological purpose, what would this purpose be for the cup?
I may not be able to tell. Tell me.
Like a red blood cell.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yes. The red blood cell.
Yeah. Can you see the red blood cell in this cup?
Mm,
Not really.
not really.
Okay. So what does a red blood cell do? A red blood cell goes from one location and grabs contents.
Yes.
And it comes to distribute to other areas that is going to use it. So this red blood cell is like this transportation device.
Okay.
It transports contents from one location to another location. The same thing is that this cup transports transports contents from one location to another location. So when the drink is made, it comes and delivers to me. Now, it's not as efficient as biology's pattern, because biology has billions of years to master this, right? But this cup contains that pattern. Now, to make it a little bit easier for you to see, imagine if we strapped a drone to this,
Yes.
right? And we were inside of a coffee shop. We were sitting inside of a coffee shop. Everyone's sitting around. They all had their cups of coffee.
Yes.
And as the cups of coffee were done, the cup would take off and fly back and grab another cup of coffee and then fly back. So imagine everyone sitting down, these cups of coffee floating around. It starts to resemble a circulatory system.
Yes.
Like you can start seeing that circulatory system happening.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's that pattern. I mean, even the streets with the cars, like veins.
Yes.
Inside this building, right? Inside the building, there's a frame in the building.
Yes.
Right? The frame, its purpose, its function is like a skeletal system.
Yes.
Right? It provides structure. These windows
Yes.
function very similar to our eyes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. It helps us to see.
Right, allows us to see. So if we're inside and we're looking outside, right, it would be
Yes.
like we are the back of the eye looking out the window, which is our cornea, right? What else? Are you like music?
I do.
Yeah. So music functions very similar to protein production. So what do I mean by that? You have an instrument,
Yes.
right? You input the fingers. I code into the instrument, and then music is played. It's produced, right? So very similar in biology. You have a ribosome, and you have the RNA that goes into the ribosome, and then protein comes out. So even in the production of protein, right? It resembles music.
Music.
Yeah. The melting and freezing of Antarctica, like a heart. Right? So each revolution around the sun, Antarctica melts, freezes, and then creates the Arctic currents, right? From the melting or from the freezing, it pushes the highly salinated water throughout the world, right? And it creates these ocean currents, and those ocean currents function very similar to a circulatory system. It helps to distribute a lot of the nutrients around the globe, and also helps to regulate the temperature of the Earth. And then Antarctica functioning like a heart, pumping, right? So this biological pattern exists there, right? But it's not apparent, right? It's not like normally that we can see it unless we have an understanding within ourselves,
Yes.
right? By understanding these patterns, because we are the culmination of the universe, right?
Humans.
Yes, man-made in the image of God, right?
Okay. Why do you say humans are the culmination of?
So imagine the universe. It creates these biological patterns, and it's created through these biological patterns. These biological patterns end up creating life. We are the result. We are the product of these patterns of biology.
Okay.
And by understanding those patterns within us, right, we are the template. We are the model for these patterns in the world around us.
Why do you say so?
Because because these biological patterns can be seen all around us, right? And they can only be understood by having an understanding of these patterns within us, because we define that. We are the result of the universe's patterns.
Okay. So you believe in the argument that man is the summation of creation. Man is the summation of creation. That is.
Yes, it is. Living things, and man is a more complex summation.
Okay. Yeah. What I mean is, man is the measure of all things. Is that?
Yeah.
In creation.
Yes.
Do you believe in God?
I do believe. I know. How do I explain it? In writing this paper, I found a way to connect all of religions.
Okay.
And, are you familiar with the term perennial wisdom or
What's perennial wisdom?
perennial wisdom is like the idea where all of our religions stem from a common truth.
Yes.
So like if you look at like Hindu texts, if you look at like Judaic text, Catholicism and Islam, right? There are certain ideas
Yes.
that are similar across them all.
Yes.
And what perennial wisdom says is that they all stem from this common truth.
Yes.
And I'm saying that common truth is biology.
Okay.
Right? So what do I mean by that? Is that like man made in the image of God? We'll start with Christianity and his Catholicism. And I think that even Judaism accepts that. Man made in the image of God. If we understand God as
Which gods?
no, there's only one God, right? And there is no the best way to explain it is that like the universe is God. Right? And the universe is biological in its pattern. And it has come to create
Is this God biological?
It is biological. It is a biologically patterned universe, yes.
No, I'm talking of the God you are referring to. Is the God biological?
I don't know, but its patterns are of biology.
Okay. So in essence, you are saying that the creation you are talking about, which you say is biological, right? The creation you are talking about is created. The creation, okay, let me ask.
The actions of it, yes, the actions of it, the creation of everything comes from these biological patterns, which stem from this God, right? Which it could just be energy, it could be some type of like patterning, right? That exists all around us. That is life, right? That is good, but also it can be bad if we do things against those patterns, right? Like if you your body is good. However, if you eat too much salt or too much sugar, right, bad things start to happen in your body, right? These negative consequences. So like your body is naturally good. It's naturally designed for potential. Just like the universe is designed for potential. But when we go off the patterns of life, right, we start experiencing the consequences of that. And but to bring it back to the different religions and connecting them all, you have the Atman and Brahman, or let's go to Islam, right? Batin and Zahir. Batin is inner reality, and then Zahir is the external reality, it's the manifestations.
Yes.
So they have the whirling dervishes that spin around in circles.
Yes.
They contemplate the nature of God within themselves.
Yes.
Right? And I'm saying the nature of God is biological.
Okay.
And if you contemplate the nature of God within yourself, you're these biological patterns. The Atman and Brahman in the Upanishads, the Hindu texts and the Buddhism. Atman and Brahman. Atman is the inner reality. By understanding the internal reality, the Atman, you can understand the external reality, the Brahman, right? And that's what I'm proposing, is that by understanding these biological patterns within you, you can understand the biological patterns that exist around us. Because the universe has come, these biological patterns that came to create life. We are the result of it, right? We are the patterns condensed into a unit.
Who condensed us?
The patterns of, I would say, you could say God, you could say the universe, right? This biologically patterned universe, we can call it God, right? Because I mean, whatever term they used back then, it was God, right? I mean, if I use universe now, maybe 1,000 years from now, universe will be considered God. You know what I mean? It's just a way that we interpret that. Like, they could have been trying to express the universe, but people just understood it as God. And then they understood it as a person. They understood God as an individual because it has the same patterns inside of us, right?
So we are the condensed form.
We are a condensed form, absolutely, yes.
Of the universe.
A distilled version of the patterns all within us.
Okay. So when you started, I think you made mention of the fact that everything is biological.
Yes. Biologically patterned.
Okay, biologically patterned. Do you believe in spirits?
I do. I don't know how to explain that.
Is spirits biologically patterned? Or is it a pattern of biology? Is spirit a pattern of biology?
I mean, to be honest, I haven't put in too much thought into that. I know I've heard stories of spirits and ghosts. I guess the best way I can explain that is just energy, right? And the same way that we have energy within us, you know, is the same way that this energy can exist. And maybe,
different forms.
maybe there's exists some type of quantum entanglement, right? Like a quantum, you know.
Okay. So let me ask you: do you believe in reincarnation?
I do.
Have you experienced one?
Huh?
Have you experienced reincarnation?
I don't. I mean, I'm sure I have. I don't remember if I have.
Okay. What made you believe in reincarnation?
I heard a lot of stories,
Okay.
a lot of powerful stories. It's kind of hard to disregard.
Yes.
And also, too, I don't want to believe that this life is the only life that we have. I think that we're here to learn and to grow as individuals. And,
Okay.
you know, and to have one bad life and that be it, you kind of feel ripped off. You want to get another go at it and do better, you know?
But if you get another go, is it within your powers to change situations for yourself?
I think in the prior life, yes. I think the more the better that you can do in this lifetime to be the best person you can be, reduces the ability or reduces the probability of you having to come back the next life. You know.
So you mean if for instance somebody lived well now, right, in this phase, what does it do for the person in the next life?
Well, hopefully you don't have one, right? I believe that, I personally believe that, yeah, there are, reincarnation exists to a certain point where you have mastered life and then you don't need to come back again. You become part of something bigger.
Okay, you when you live life to the fullest, like?
Live life to the fullest, and you live as a good person. You live life to the principles of life.
Okay. What are the principles of life?
The principles of life would be very similar to the principles of life in your body, right? If you look at the cells inside your body, like people in society, you know, if you look at the how cells operate in a healthy body, those same principles are how we should operate in real life. And I know that's very general, but if we're kind of to break it down and to make it more practical,
Yes.
I would say just being kind, being empathetic, being listening, right? And to not judge people or to understand people, right? If someone comes from, and you know, I think the other day there's a person who shot an older lady down in the stadium area. Have you heard about that kid?
I think so,
It's
yeah.
over a parking spot. He shot the lady.
Yes.
A lot of people were making fun of him, right? So he could go to jail, and obviously he's got to pay the consequences of his actions.
Yes.
But we also have to understand and empathize where this guy grew up from, right? And like how he grew up, right? Like it's not completely his fault, right? Like he had a different living circumstances, and he grew up differently, which resulted in those actions, right? And for us to like condemn him, you know, without realizing where he came from, right? Because I think the real criminal in society is society itself, right? The real criminal in society is society itself. It's society's inability to take care of its people, right?
Okay.
Would you harm a cell in your body because if you ate too much sugar or ate too much salt and your body started operating in a different way, would you yell at or condone or like look negatively upon the cells that are carrying the bad actions, or would you look to the system, right? It's the system that's making those cells react in a negative way. And the same thing is happening within society, is that these are inefficiencies within our society, our poor economics.
Who created the inefficiencies?
Who create inefficiencies?
The inefficiencies we are talking about in society. Who created them?
It's just it's a byproduct of the trajectory of our society. I think that, you know, the nature of people is they want to have these, just the way that society progressed has allowed for these laws to exist and allow people to capitalize on certain aspects of the law, right? It allowed people to benefit more than others, right? But I feel like we will get to a point where we will realize how things should be structured and then restructure society in a more sustainable way. I think all of these struggles are necessary so that we learn, right? It's like any child or any person growing up, by you failing at things, by you experiencing troubles, you learn from those mistakes and you become a better person. And I think the nature of society is the same way, is that society has to struggle to learn. And there will get to a point where society will be able to learn from those struggles and to reevaluate themselves. You know, it's no different than a person.
Okay. Now, what do you say, is success a part of reality?
Is what?
Success. Part of reality. And what is success to you?
So success, there's two different versions of success. There's a way, there's an objective reality of success.
Okay.
Right? And then there's a subjective reality based around success.
What is subjective?
So subjective would be like a personal truth, right? A personal, our interpretation of success.
Okay.
Right? So there's many different interpretations of success, right? It can range anywhere between making a lot of money or being able to do a kickflip, you know, if you're skateboarding, or achieving some type of goal that you've been wanting to achieve. But the greatest success, right, is life.
Okay.
How? By recognizing the patterns and organizing ourselves to those patterns to live, right? Living organisms are the most, life is the greatest success story in the universe. And maintaining life and living and continuing living and living in balanced, right, is successful. So just like it would be successful for your body, right, for you to remain, or my body, whatever, all of our bodies to remain in perfect health, that would be success for our body.
Okay, now the success I'm talking about is human success, society success. Like, everybody has expectations.
Correct.
However, also, even when you have, like the one you talked about, subjective success, right, which could be personal or individual expectations in life.
Right.
The goals you want to attain in life, that could be subjective.
Correct.
Now, society also has some expectations from you as an individual, that maybe at certain time, for instance, someone in college is expected to, society expects you generally to do well in college. Right? Whether you do well or not depends on you as an individual sometimes, in most cases. Not always. You could do well as an individual in college, but the college fails you. Right? So in that case, what do you say?
Well, that's, and so in that case, you would have to, and I think that's a big thing. Right now, our society is based around economics, right? It's based around money.
Yes.
And it's in that money, you create haves and have-nots, and you allow people to create more wealth than they really need. And it's not being distributed around around society. So then you start, plus you allow for different tax breaks for companies, then you don't have the education system working the way that it should be working. So I guess first, in order to have successful people, we have to have a successful society, right?
But you cannot have a successful society without having successful people.
No, okay.
Can we?
No. Imagine this. Can you have a successful children if you don't have successful parents? And I say successful parents, what I mean by that, though,
no,
I'll
there
define.
are successful children, in quotes, who have parents who are failures.
Right, but very few. But
there are very few. But there are.
No, but that's a different breed. I think what's stronger, what is a given science, though, is that by having a stronger family, a better family system allows for stronger kids. Yes. Or you have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I get it. They're just saying, because there are kids who are born who are just there's something within them, right? There's
Yes.
some power within them that allows them to excel
Yes.
out of despite
It's
whoever their family
despite
is.
yes, who their parents are.
Absolutely.
Now, my question, what I want to get clearer is this about the issue of success in life. However, one describes success. However, I want to get the fact is what is the most important ingredient to success? That is, what makes one to achieve, whether it is individual success or it is objective success. My question is, what is it that makes it in, how do I put it?
I think just trying your best. I think trying your best at
Okay,
and I think to be successful you have to have a goal.
a goal.
Have a goal.
Yes.
And then you have to do your best to attain it. And then after that, you reevaluate and you do it again.
Okay, are you saying that those who have not attained that success,
Huh?
are you saying that those who haven't attained their success point, whether it is individual or objective, that they have not had a goal and worked towards the goal?
Who aren't successful?
Yes, those who aren't successful. Is it that they haven't worked towards the goal enough, or what? Why? Why haven't they attained it?
Well, there could be multiple different reasons for that.
Like,
Like could be their family, it could be their environment that they're in.
okay,
Right? Is this not nurturing for them?
okay,
Right? And it could be, I mean, that would be it, right? It could be maybe just, I mean, if a person is, if they were born malformed, right? Or maybe like, with mental deficiencies, right?
Yes.
Then, then success does not matter for them as much as it matters to the people around him to take care of him, right? Then we don't measure that person's success. We measure the people around that person's
Okay, now
ability
let me give you a scenario. You have two individuals, right? Let's say in a college, let's use college, we're in college here, right? You have two students who are all medical students, right? They are working very hard, equally hard, right?
right?
Doing fantastically well on their own. They are doing their assignments, just doing everything that is required of them. Now, at the end of the day, the student A passes her exams successfully, right? Student B does not pass as well as student A, even though they read at the same rate, did everything that was required of them, but the other one did better than the other. Why? Why should it be so?
Maybe one person is made to do that and the other person's not. Maybe the environment is forcing that person to do something. And so very similar to your body, right? Your body, you have different cells. You have 200 and something different jobs
Yes.
inside your body, right? Now, in order for them to figure out what they want to do, you have these adult stem cells, and they have to be stimulated in a particular way in order to find their purpose,
Yes.
right? And to become what they want. Now, if you try to take that and you try to stimulate it and put it into something they don't want to do, or you stimulate it the wrong way, it will not be. It becomes a keloid.
Yes.
It becomes inactive.
But in this, I'm sorry.
I'm saying. I know I'm using that. I'm saying that people are the same way. Is that like you have this person who's just naturally good at that? That means that they are made to do that.
Okay.
If that person is not able to do that, then maybe their parents forced them. Maybe they aren't made to do that. Maybe they felt like they needed to do that, even though that's not their purpose in life.
Okay.
Right? Maybe there's another purpose that they're better at doing that they would have excel at. Right?
Okay. But in this context, both students loved what they were doing. They all chose that this is what they wanted to do. Nobody forced them, right? They did. I mean, they were invested in this equally.
But how do
enough.
how do we know that that person was really happy, right? And like it doesn't matter if they're happy. It really matters what they're able to do, right?
So my question is, when two different individuals pursue the same thing equally, apply the same effort, the same energy, the same everything, they do the same thing with commitment. not that they were being forced. The same environment, the same. It's like in a lab, right? You create the same environment for you to run a test. At the end of the day, something happens. The result of the other one differs from the other one, even though you created the same environment for them.
Right.
So my question is, in that case, the person who didn't attain the same level of results like the other one might think that, okay, he or she was not successful. Now, this do you believe in luck?
Well, I believe luck is when opportunity meets preparedness. It's the intersection between being prepared and having the opportunity to do that.
But there are those who have been prepared just like equally as the other person who met an opportunity and didn't meet the same opportunity that the other person met. So how do you describe that? Is it not being unlucky?
How do you describe what? What?
The fact that somebody, because you just described luck as preparation meeting opportunity. And I'm saying that there are people who have the same level of preparation like the other person who was lucky, but they never and may never meet the same opportunity that this other person met.
Well, they don't create the opportunity, right?
So
like you don't create.
you
have to get the manifested opportunity.
You want them to create the opportunity.
Like I would not.
The other person did not create his or her own opportunity. The other person got her own opportunity on the platter. He was in his house and somebody brought the opportunity. So why didn't the same opportunity go and meet this other person who was also prepared like the other person in his own house?
Look, I think I'm out here right now and I'm creating an opportunity, right?
Yes.
I'm prepared. And I try to solicit and disseminate my paper to different professors and different journals, right? And, I was prepared for that. And I don't think that they're prepared to accept it. So I'm making my opportunity, right? I got to keep things moving because I know that I'm right? And I'm driven to do whatever it takes, right? That is nonviolent to bring this information to light.
Yes.
Right? Now, I don't know that was for the success, and that's what's going to make me successful.
Yes.
Okay?
In your own case, you could say yes.
And now I could easily just not do anything. And someone else maybe come along and they read my paper, and then they steal my paper, right? And they become successful.
Yes.
Right? So that's a possibility.
No,
right?
And it happens in real life.
And it happens exactly, but I'm just saying that there's nothing that you can do, man. You have to keep moving forward.
Good. That means that goes back to what I said, that I don't actually think that whatever we achieve in life depends on being prepared or I think it just depends on luck in most of the time.
No, but luck is being prepared.
You could be prepared, as it has happened in most cases. You are prepared, and you don't get the same opportunity that others who are not even prepared get.
Then you have to make that opportunity. But you're not
prepared.
That means
you are being required to do extra things.
No, it's not
that
required.
Others didn't do. That means you are unlucky.
Look.
Look.
I could go and I could play baseball, and I could become the best baseball player in the world.
Yes.
And I could play in my backyard.
Yes.
I can learn. I can be the best player. No one knows.
Yes.
Right? Now, I'm prepared, but I'm not. In order to create that opportunity, in order to have that opportunity, I have to create it. I have to go and play in front of people.
Okay. Now.
Okay. So listen to that, and that just as simple as that is, you have to make that opportunity.
There are people who have gone out to play so that they could be discovered. At the end of the day, they were not.
Yeah.
They didn't get the same.
They're not prepared enough.
No. They are.
But they're not.
I'm talking of real life situation here.
No, but they're not prepared.
I'm not talking of theories.
They've prepared, but they're not prepared enough.
There are people who maybe, let's give an example with this guy. What's his name? LeBron, for instance. LeBron is a famous basketball player, right?
LeBron James.
There are so many of his counterparts who today, when they look at him, they either they regret or they just say, okay, maybe that's how God wanted it. Because probably they played at the same level with him. Maybe even played better than he did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
But the guy is today more successful in that sport than those other guys.
I'm saying this.
Does it mean those guys were not prepared?
It doesn't matter. I don't care.
Good. So that means you are agreeing to what I'm saying, that mostly it's all about luck. And when luck shines on you, all you have to do is to accept the fact
I'm
that...
saying, you know what? And then you know what? If you don't, what you got to do is you got to play, go to a different school, right? Keep playing harder.
There
right?
are people.
There are people who are more hungry than him, right? I've seen people in Africa, okay, who are tying themselves up to fucking like rubber bands and playing around, whatchamacallit, man? Playing around with tires, and they're doing all they can, man. And they're going on social media, right? There's different ways to go about doing it, right?
There are people who have been on that social media for years, and nobody. There are people who have done that, been on social media. Maybe just, in short, maybe the very first day they uploaded their stuff on social media, somebody from a team, from a club invites them over to the US and say, come and play for us. But there are people who have been on that social media doing the same thing that guy is doing for years, and nobody has ever invited them. Or even if they are invited, maybe for one reason or the other, maybe they go to the airport, their visas are denied for no just cause.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, that I think we should be able to accept that most of the things we achieve in life are not necessarily because we put better efforts or we are more prepared than those who didn't arrive at that level. We should just be humble enough to accept that we're just luckier than these guys. Yeah. I'm talking also from my own personal experience.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
there are things I have tried to achieve.
Right.
I know I put more efforts, I am more prepared and more involved than this other person who didn't even do
would you come out with a table?
Said?
But would you come out? I mean, it depends on what would you do, right? What are you willing to do for success, right?
When you have done everything that was required of, even done extra.
No, but
I just gave you instances.
Yeah, but maybe,
right?
But you done the orthodox way. But maybe you need to go and do unorthodox ways.
Okay, now let me leave you with this. We say in my place that those whose palm kernel have been cracked by the benevolent spirit should not forget to be humble. I have accepted that reality of life. Even the Bible, I don't know if you're a Christian, even the Bible has something like that. When God says, I bless whom I want to bless. I have mercy on whom I want to have mercy. He says, my reign reigns for both the good and the bad. And I've accepted that reality. All we can do as humans in this flesh is to put in our efforts. If our efforts make it possible for us to get what we want, good. If not, we also accept the reality that, okay, maybe this is our lot.
Yeah, I mean, be honest,
yeah,
right? Because I could be doing this paper, right?
Yeah.
And then I could not be successful from
exactly.
it. But you know
there are people who may not even...
But as long as I tried everything, I'll be happy that I tried everything I could possibly do.
That is what I'm saying.
And I have to do.
Perfect.
And
I'm happy you are realizing that when we have done our best, and our best may not get us what we want, let us still be happy that,
absolutely.
okay,
my man.
yeah, this is
That's it. Yes, it is.
Okay.